Ring, ring, the shrill sound pierced through Sarah's sleep. Groaning, she fumbled for the phone on her nightstand. It was her mother, her voice heavy with sorrow. "Grandpa's gone, sweetheart," she said, her voice cracking. "He passed away peacefully in his sleep last night." Sarah's heart sank. She had been dreading this call for years. Her grandfather, a stoic but loving man, had been a constant presence in her life. Now he was gone, leaving behind a void that could never be filled. He had lived in the same old house on Harbinger Lane for as long as Sarah could remember, a place filled with childhood memories. She knew she had to go there, to face the emptiness left by his absence and to help her family clear out the house. It wouldn't be easy, she thought, but it had to be done. With a heavy heart, she packed a bag, her mind already replaying countless childhood summers spent in that old house. Little did she know this trip would be unlike any other. The drive was a blur. Sarah's mind raced with memories, each one a bittersweet reminder of the man she had lost. As she pulled into the familiar driveway of her grandfather's house, a wave of sadness washed over her. The old Victorian house loomed before her, its paint peeling, its windows dark and vacant. It looked just as she remembered it, yet somehow different, as if a shroud of sadness had settled upon it along with the dust and cobwebs. The house stood on a hill overlooking the town, a grand old Victorian with gingerbread trim and a wraparound porch. But the years had not been kind to it. The paint was peeling, the roof sagged in places, and the once bright garden was overgrown with weeds. Sarah pushed open the creaking gate and walked up the cracked sidewalk to the front door. As she stepped inside, the air grew heavy, thick with the scent of dust and decay. Cobwebs hung from every corner and the furniture was draped in dusty sheets. The house felt cold, not just from the lack of heating, but from a deep, unsettling chill that seemed to emanate from its very core. She wandered through the house, each room a time capsule of her grandfather's life. His favorite armchair still sat by the fireplace, a book lying open on the armrest as if he had just stepped away for a moment. In the kitchen, his collection of antique teacups sat in a glass cabinet, each one a reminder of the countless cups of tea they had shared. But it was the basement door that drew her attention. It was at the end of a long, dark hallway, half hidden behind a dusty tapestry. Sarah had always been afraid of the basement as a child. It was a dark and forbidding place, filled with her grandfather's old junk and what her imagination had conjured as lurking shadows. The basement door creaked open, releasing a musty, cold gust of air that sent shivers down Sarah's spine. The air was thick with the smell of damp earth and something else, something unidentifiable but distinctly unpleasant. The only light came from the doorway behind her, casting long dancing shadows across the earthen floor. Clutching a flashlight, Sarah took a hesitant step down the wooden stairs. Each step groaned under her weight, the sound echoing in the oppressive silence. The air grew colder, damper, as if she were descending into the bowels of the earth. She swept the flashlight beam across the vast, low-ceilinged space. It was crammed with her grandfather's forgotten belongings. Old furniture draped in dust covers, rusted tools hanging on the walls, boxes stacked haphazardly, their contents unknown. In the flickering beam of her flashlight, the shadows seemed to writhe and shift, taking on menacing forms that sent shivers down her spine. The silence was broken only by the drip, drip, drip of water somewhere in the darkness. Or was it something else? A shiver ran down Sarah's spine. She felt an unnerving presence, a feeling of being watched by unseen eyes. A sudden noise, a scraping sound from the far end of the basement made her jump. Her heart pounded in her chest. Fear urged her to turn back, to flee the oppressive atmosphere of the basement. But curiosity and the need to know the source of the eerie sounds spurred her forward. She edged closer to the source of the sound, her flashlight beam cutting through the darkness. There in the far corner, half hidden behind a towering stack of boxes, was a door. It was a crude, almost makeshift-looking door made of rough-hewn planks and secured with a heavy padlock. Sarah hadn't noticed it before, obscured as it was in the shadowy depths of the basement. She approached cautiously, her pulse quickening with each step. What was this hidden door doing in her grandfather's basement? Why had he never mentioned it? Intrigue warred with fear as she reached out a trembling hand and touched the cold, damp wood of the door. The padlock was old and rusty, but it held firm. Sarah searched for a key, her flashlight beam dancing over the dusty boxes and cobweb-draped tools. Finally, she found it lying almost hidden beneath a pile of old newspapers. The key was tarnished with age, cold and heavy in her hand. With trembling hands, Sarah inserted the key into the lock. It turned with a heavy thunk, the sound unnaturally loud in the stillness of the basement. A blast of cold, fetid air hit her in the face as she pushed open the door. It smelled like decay and something else, something acrid and vaguely metallic that made her stomach churn. Holding her breath, Sarah stepped inside. The room was small, cramped, the air thick with dust, and the same unsettling odor that permeated from the door. The only light came from her flashlight, its beam revealing bare earth walls and a dirt floor. But what drew her attention, what made her breath catch in her throat, was a single object in the center of the room. It was a small, ornate wooden chest, its surface intricately carved with strange symbols that seemed to writhe and shift in the flickering beam of her flashlight. The chest pulsed with a faint, sickly green glow, emanating from within the intricate carvings. It was as if the chest itself was alive, its wooden heart beating in time with the growing unease in Sarah's chest. Section 6. What lies beneath. Drawn by an irresistible curiosity, Sarah knelt before the chest. Its surface was cold to the touch, the wood oddly smooth beneath her fingertips. She traced the strange symbols with her fingers, their meaning unknown, but their presence undeniably unsettling. It felt wrong, somehow, to be touching it, like she was intruding on something sacred or forbidden. Taking a deep breath, she lifted the heavy lid of the chest. It creaked open, the sound echoing unnaturally loud in the confined space. Inside, nestled on a bed of faded velvet, lay a single object, a small silver hand mirror. The mirror's frame was ornately crafted, just like the chest, its surface engraved with the same disturbing symbols. As Sarah reached for the mirror, a wave of dizziness washed over her. The air grew colder, the oppressive atmosphere of the room pressing down on her like a physical weight. She could feel her heart pounding in her chest, her breath catching in her throat. A sense of dread, primal and overwhelming, washed over her. Ignoring the warning bells screaming in her head, Sarah picked up the mirror. It was cold in her hand, the metal sending a jolt through her arm. As she brought the mirror up to her face, the air around her crackled with energy. The shadows in the room deepened, and the faint green glow emanating from the chest intensified, bathing the room in an eerie light. Section 7. Don't turn around. The moment she looked into the mirror's surface, Sarah let out a gasp. It wasn't her reflection staring back at her. The face in the mirror was older, gaunter, with eyes that burned with an unnatural intensity. The face was vaguely familiar, yet twisted into an expression of pure malice that sent a chill down her spine. Panic surged through her. She dropped the mirror, the sound of it clattering on the dirt floor amplified in the small space. As she scrambled back, away from the chest and the terrifying visage in the mirror, she felt a cold, unseen hand grip her shoulder. "Don't turn around," a voice whispered in her ear, the voice raspy and chillingly close. "Don't you ever turn around?" Terror, raw and consuming, rooted Sarah to the spot. She couldn't breathe, couldn't scream. The grip on her shoulder tightened, the unseen fingers digging into her flesh like claws. "You shouldn't have come here," the voice hissed, the sound sending shivers down her spine. "This place is mine now." A sob escaped Sarah's lips, but she couldn't tear her gaze away from the wall in front of her. The air crackled with energy and the shadows in the room danced and swirled, taking on grotesque shapes that seemed to mock her terror. Section 8. He was never really gone. Slowly, agonizingly slowly, Sarah turned around. The room was empty. The chest lay open on the floor, the silver mirror reflecting the eerie green glow emanating from its depths. But there was no sign of the entity, the unseen presence that had spoken to her, that had gripped her with icy fingers. The silence in the room was deafening, broken only by the sound of Sarah's ragged breathing. She stumbled back, her hand reaching behind her for support. Her fingers brushed against something cold and solid. It was the wall, the rough-hewn planks digging into her back. But as her fingers traced the surface of the wall, they encountered something else, something carved into the wood, just above her head. It was a symbol, the same strange symbol that adorned the chest and the silver mirror, and beneath it, etched into the wood with what could only be described as claw marks, were 3 words. He was never really gone. A wave of nausea washed over Sarah. She stumbled back, her foot catching on the edge of the open chest. With a cry, she fell, her body hitting the dirt floor with a thud. As her vision swam, she saw it again. The face in the mirror, only this time it wasn't just a reflection, it was real. And it was leaning over her, its eyes burning with a cold, malevolent light. Section 9. Trapped. The face was her grandfather's, yet twisted into a grotesque mockery of life. His eyes, once warm and filled with laughter, now burned with an infernal glow, reflecting the same eerie light as the symbols on the chest. A low chuckle, devoid of any warmth or humanity, echoed around her. "You see, my dear granddaughter," the apparition rasped, his voice a chilling whisper that seemed to seep into her very bones. "Some houses are best left undisturbed. Some doors are meant to remain closed." Sarah scrambled back, her heart pounding against her ribs like a drum. The entity that was once her beloved grandfather glided towards her, his form shimmering, translucent yet undeniably present. Terror, primal and suffocating, paralyzed her. The temperature plummeted, the air growing thick with the stench of decay and something else, something ancient and evil. Sarah felt a bone-chilling cold envelop her, seeping into her very core. The unseen hand, now cold as death, clamped over her mouth, stifling her scream. Now the apparition whispered, his voice a chilling caress against her ear, "Let the inheritance begin." Sarah's vision blurred. The last thing she saw before the darkness claimed her was the grotesque grin spreading across her grandfather's spectral face, the silver mirror clutched in his hand, reflecting not her terrified image but his own triumphant visage. Trapped in the basement, Sarah was left to face the horrifying truth. She was now a prisoner in her own inheritance, a captive of the entity that had been lying in wait, concealed beneath the floorboards of her family's legacy.